Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. This is Cometza Club Radio Africa, the voice of Cometza, the organization that everybody wants to be associated with. The mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. We inform and entertain. We develop and educate. We empower and support. We associate and network. That's the idea. We welcome Mr. Fusi Motaung, who is our guest this moment. Greetings, Ndade Motaung.
Greetings, Ndade Tima, and greetings to the listeners of Cometza.
How have we been, Ndade Motaung?
Ndade Tima, we have been coping well. I suppose you are asking mainly about the coronavirus outbreak and the lockdown.
Absolutely. That is the common question on the lips of every one of us.
Absolutely. So, yes, we have been very well. And I think everybody has been trying to abide by the guidance and the lockdown restrictions. And therefore, so far, so good in my family and among the friends and the associates that I collaborate with.
Wonderful. And we are very excited to have you here to share with us your life journey, your professional journey, and your business journey in Ndade Motaung.
Thank you, Ndade Tima. Thank you for the opportunity. I think it is going to be a great time also for me to be here with you.
Lovely. This series, the Entrepreneurial series, is dedicated to people like yourself who have ventured out of the corporate life and started something of your own, which is what Africa is crying for.
Indeed, Ndade Tima.
Lovely. Let's start by just getting to know who Mr. Fusi Motaung is. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And what are your full names? And who are the Motaungs?
Well, Ndade Tima, first of all, I have to tell you that this is one of the most difficult questions that everybody is having to answer in their lives.
Yeah.
And it is interesting that you're asking this question, and I do hope that when we discuss the book, you will realize this topic will come back again.
Yeah.
To answer you, I was born in a place called Qwa Qwa.
Yes.
It is one of the former homelands / Bantustans. And it is situated in the eastern part of the Free State. It is right at the border that separates the Free State from Lesotho and from KwaZulu-Natal on the eastern part. The two nearest towns that I can give as perhaps coordinates is Bethlehem on the east-west side, as well as Harrismith on the east side.
Yeah.
I grew up there in a place called Tababusiu. So Qwa Qwa as a place has got its own small villages.
Yes.
And I was born in a village called Tababusiu.
Yeah.
And I started school there until my parents moved to closer to a place called Putalichaba. And I started my so-called standard 4, I think it is grade 6.
Yes, that's grade 6.
Yes, until I finished my matric.
Metric being the grade 12.
Metric being the grade 12.
Yeah, and how was your childhood like?
can remember a few things, Dadetima. Maybe let me answer it this way. In the village where I was born, in the same yard where I lived, my parents had a house. And in the same yard, there was also a house of my paternal grandparents. So my grandfather and my grandmother lived in that other house, while myself and my siblings and my parents, we lived in another house. So Qwa Qwa being what it is, it was really a remote area, very separated from the goings on of most of what South Africa was like at the time. And I could say that because we had what I could call a paramount chief who had his own small economy running in the area. Most of the time, I think Qwa Qwa was a very quiet and secluded place. A lot of what was around really is nature. So I was exposed to a lot of things like birds that I don't see anymore during these days, plants, trees, flowers. You can only see them when you go back to that area. We don't see them here. And the culture was also still very an old culture where, for example, there were times when boys and girls of a particular age have to go to initiation schools. So there was still a lot of mixture of modern schooling and ancient ways of doing things. It was also having a lot of older generation people. It is slightly different from what we see today in the urban areas where the majority of people you see are young and middle-aged people. In Qwa Qwa, people grew up to a very old age, so there was still a great number of them. And the teachings were also coming from people like those. And it was a very close-knit community because in an area of about, you could say maybe 1,000 people, everybody knew everybody. Mm. So as a child, you grow up being taught that first of all, you respect the elders, you greet everybody you come across, and everybody who's just older than you, whether by a year or 10 or 20, ke abuti, or it's a sister, ke ausi, and other people ke ntate, ke mme. And those are the teachings that I can remember right now, thinking about how Qwa Qwa and Thaba was like back then.
Yeah. And Tate Motaung, are you still in touch with your home village this time, today?
It takes a long time, Dadetima, to go back there. I think I am lucky that I managed to visit the village at least 4 times a year.
Yes.
So yes, because I still have relatives in the area, I still get the opportunity to visit them, and therefore yes, I am still in touch with the area.
I can hear from you that you talk about that village with some fond memories inside you. Some
I have
beautiful
fond
emotions.
Memories of it, I do.
They groomed you very well.
I'd like to think so, Daddy. Thank you very much.
And of course, the schooling is what I'm very interested in as well. How was it at school?
I lived about 30-minute walk to my primary school. So what I remember right now is that I was exposed to that school even long before I was ready to enroll there. Mm. So I could hear a bell ring while I was still a child, playing and staying with my grandmother, because my father was a migrant worker who worked mostly in areas like Musina and Witbank and Middelburg, who only came at the end of the month. And my mother caught an early bus every morning to work in Harrismith and be back around 6 o'clock. So they would leave the three of us at the time with my grandmother. So from the time when the other kids were in uniform and going to school, and when the bell rang, and when they assembled and they sang hymns, I could hear from where I was. So by the time I went to school, I already knew the hymns because I always heard
Wow, that's good. That was the best orientation I've ever heard of. And of course, most of us grew up in villages like that. You will definitely hear the bell, and then if your brother is still at home, you know he is late. And
of course.
You will say, "Hey, you are late," and then he will sprint out and run.
Yes.
And then they will come back during playtime. We call it playtime, but it was actually the time to come home and eat and go back to school.
That is exactly how it was, Tatitima, even for us.
Man, those were sweet days. You know, actually, when I think of it now, hey, we made do with everything, man. You know, there was no such a thing that you're carrying food to school. You go to school, you focus on learning, and then at around 11 o'clock, you all come home, you go into your homes, you eat,
Yes.
and then within that 30 minutes you have eaten, and you all back. And then, and we will see you either carrying apple or a banana or something. Then we know, yeah, yours was a good one.
Yes, that is exactly how it was, Tatitima. And I think because our primary school catered for a very large area for kids. There were many of us. Some of us came from very far. I can tell you that if the school started at 8 o'clock, the kids who lived very far had to be at least on their way from around 6:30 to get to school.
Yeah.
So those who lived very far, unfortunately, I used to observe that they did not have the opportunity that you and I are talking about today. So they'd either be forced to have money to buy something like magwinya,
Yes.
or maybe acha or something, or maybe they did not have anything at all, and therefore they would only eat when they are back home.
Yes. I experienced that when I went to high school. I used to travel for an hour. You are walking to school in the morning and an hour back in the afternoon. And at school, if you had a little money, and you can buy soup and half a bread, quarter of a bread loaf.
Yes.
And that was a good lunch.
Absolutely.
And you are expected to be fully concentrating and pass.
That is how it was, Tatitima.
So which subjects did you take in your grade 12 matric then?
Tatitima, it is almost like you were there yesterday when I was talking to some young people in Sasolbeck. We were talking about exactly this. So in my matric, during that time, you had to take 3 languages. So I was doing Sesotho as well as Afrikaans and English. Then I did mathematics. I also did biology and agricultural science. Those were my 6 subjects.
So that was like science stream, so it was almost. You were just short of physical science to make it a science stream.
Absolutely, yes. So there were only 2 types. We did not have commerce at our high school. So if you were not doing mathematics, physical science, and biology, you were then doing mathematics, agricultural science, and biology. And then the rest of the other classes would be doing subjects like history, geography, and biblical studies.
Yes. The subject biology say something to you and I. But the generation of today, they don't know what you're talking about when you say biology. That is called life sciences today.
Correct, yes. Life sciences today, yes. I'm still caught up in the nostalgia we are in.
No, but it's beautiful. I mean, one can immediately tell which generation you are, and that's beautiful. Yeah. I think all of us have got some fond memories from our schooling days, and I think we should not forget them because that's who we are now. And did you do very well, Mr. Motaung, in your last exams in grade 12? I guess it's relative,
I would have loved.
Yeah?
Not as well as I would have loved the Titsima. And I think this issue, this particular subject might be interesting for the listeners. I was generally good at school, but what I remember very well is that I was not very strong in physical science and mathematics. This is why I did not complete matric with physical science. But I remember insisting to my teachers who wanted me to think about dropping mathematics. I remember insisting that I will complete my matric with mathematics. So I can still remember that mathematics was not my strong subject. But the rest of them, I think I did okay, very well.
And then, and that was still in Qwa Qwa, eh?
I was still in Qwa Qwa, yes.
And post-matric, post-grade 12, then what happened?
So, Ntatitima, just to create a context there, so in my matric year, my father lost his job. So, and my father has not gone to school in the same way that I am going to school. So as a migrant laborer who has lost his job, the options for him were very few. So I completed matric with that particular reality. It was new to us because it had not happened before up to that point that the parents are without work. So because of that, I had applied in the middle of the year of my matric. I had applied to a number of universities and I think maybe one or two colleges. Initially I wanted to study medicine because really I enjoyed and I loved biology, which we call it life science today. So I was thinking that with mathematics and biology, I stood a chance. But when I was getting replies from universities, I got the shock of my life that because I did not have physical science, I did not qualify to do medicine.
Wow.
I had an option to do biomedical technology, and Cape Peninsula Technikon at the time had accepted me to come and do the bridging because of not having physical science. Mangosuthu Technikon also accepted me to do a bridging because I had an option of also pursuing quantity surveying, which is close to civil engineering. So they also accepted me for bridging course. But when I went to write my assessment in Durban and I came back, I was thrilled that I was accepted. I sat down with my parents to tell them the good news. They listened intently. They were beaming with pride. But when I finished telling them, they looked me in the eye and said, "We are happy that you have been accepted at Mangosuthu. And to this point, we would do anything we can do to support you. But unfortunately, you cannot start your academic year in 1998 because we don't have money." That was one of the most disappointing moments of my life. But I insisted that I am not going to loiter around the village with nothing to do. So my parents went away to talk, and they came back and they said, what do you have in mind? And I said, because information technology is one of the very hot topics now, if you could sponsor me to do a certificate for a year in IT, that will get me somewhere, and then let me see if I can find employment, and then I can pay for my fees going forward. By the grace of God, my parents were able to send me away. And I also have to say that we should also remember the role that traditional churches used to play back then. I was lucky that the church was also able to approve a bursary for me, so I was given 4,000 rand by the church. And I was able to enroll for a one-year diploma in information technology here at Vereeniging. So that was the first time I lived away from home.
And which institution in Vereeniging was that?
Come again?
Which institution in Vereeniging was that?
It was called Val Computer College at that time. I'm not sure if it is still there or if it still retains the same name.
Let's hold it there, Tate Motaung. This is very interesting. I want to come back to that point and take it forward when we are back.